Good day and welcome back to another DBZ Dokkan Battle video. In this video we're going to be taking a look at critical hits and talking about how they work in Dokkan Battle. Now, to truly understand critical hits you have to really get down and dirty into the maths of Dokkan Battle, and this can get a little bit tedious. So I will be touching on the elements that affect how much damage critical hits do and somewhat touching onto the maths, but I'm here to give you a pretty good understanding of what affects your critical hits and how your critical hits work. I will not be talking about the exact maths and the calculation behind it, but pretty much 90% of the way there. So just to kind of preface it, just so you can understand. Now, number one thing to understand about critical hits is that there's two sources. You have critical hits from passives or from super attacks, and you have critical hits from your hidden potential system. These critical hits are separate instances. So for example, if a unit has a 30% chance to crit from their passive, and then you have 30% from your hidden potential system, these have separate instances to proc. And why this is important is because they're not additive. You have a 30% chance for the passive to proc, and then you'll have a 30% chance for the secondary attack to proc. Most crit nowadays is baseline, so it's either high chance, great chance, medium chance, etc. But you can get situational crit. For example, as I just showed you with Shenron, if he gets 7 orbs, he has guaranteed crit. Now, this crit obviously occurs regardless and can occur 100% of the time. This will also affect follow-up attacks. So for example, if a unit's crit procs, in a tech Shenron's case where he has guaranteed crits, that'll apply to all his follow-up attacks. Now, the crit from the hidden potential system is a separate instance, and you gain 2% per level you have in the critical hit here. Something that's super important to understand about critical hit is that critical hit does two things. One, it circumvents a unit's defense, not their damage reduction, their defense. And two, it can still affect or be affected by the attack boost. So the type attack boost mod or node that you have in your hidden potential system will also affect crit, because crit is treated like a super effective attack, except for the fact that it has a higher multiplier at 1.87 and that it will circumvent defense, not damage reduction, defense. So anything that would normally affect your type attack bonus or your super effective against all type attacks, basically your type advantage attacks, will affect crit as well. So type attack boost is one of those things. Every point in type attack boost improves your crit and your special effect modifiers, and this will apply to your crit as well. So it's super important to understand this. In this sense, crit is always outright the highest number of damage you can do. Crit also circumvents class type differences. So for those of you who don't know, when an extreme unit attacks a super or a super attacks an extreme unit, they gain an additional 5% attack and defense. Now, this will also apply on crits, so it's very important. All other modifiers like super attack boosts or attack gains on super, etc., all apply the same to critical hits as they would to special effects. So let's talk a little bit about crit and super effective, because the two do somewhat go hand in hand. Now you have your typings, your AGL, your strength, your tech, your int, your physical. When an AGL unit attacks a strength unit, they have an advantage. Crit does this, or applies this, but at a higher modifier than super effective against all types. So super effective against all types is at 1.5, but crit is at 1.87. Or 1.875 to be exact. Most people will place it to 1.9. Then there's also a class modifier. So for example, if a unit is super class versus extreme class, that unit will gain an additional 0.5%. And again, all of these fluctuate a little bit because there's like a variance mechanic and all that stuff, but just think about it as a little bit of a touch of extra damage. Crit will also always treat it as if it's this situation. So even if you're an extreme unit attacking an extreme unit, if you crit, you will be treated as if you're an extreme unit attacking a super unit. So this is obviously important. It's important to understand that a crit is the maximum amount of damage that a unit can potentially do on that attack, and that's what makes crits so unique. They also bypass defense, which immediately increases the amount of damage they do over super effective against all types. So I've got here Launch, and Launch is under no leader skills. She's also not going to super, and Launch, her attack after we get a couple key orbs will be 42,590. Now you don't need to worry about the exact maths, but Launch is going to hit the int type punching bag. Now the int type punching bag has, I believe, like 1 defense, and you can see 2 attack stats will pop up. We have 106,000 and we have 86,000. Now the 106,000 was the crit, and the 86,000 was an effective against all types attack. Now it's pretty easy to figure out how much damage they do. Launch had an attack stat of 42,590. The modifier for special effective against all types is 1.5. We have to take away 5% because the punching bag does not have a class, which leaves us at 1.45. And then we get to add in the type attack boost that she has, which makes it 1.95. So times that by 1.95 and you get roughly 83,000 and some change, which when you add in the variance modifier works out to being the damage that Launch did. Now if we take the same attack stat, 42,590, and we apply a 1.875 modifier, we also then add in another 0.5 for the type attack boost, and then we add in again another 5% for the type boost. Now why do we get a type boost? Because crit applies the type boost regardless of what enemy we're facing. So even though the enemy does not have a type, it treats it as if they do. So what that means is, basically, to cut a long story short, we end up with a much bigger multiplier at 2.38, I believe it is. And that gives us our damage. So pretty straightforward. It's not an exact science. There's a variance modifier, there's a couple mechanics to understand here, but to cut a long story short, crit is at a 1.875 modifier. It's affected by your type attack boost, and that's all you need to know. So that's it from me. Bye.